Hello together, I am Dan André Kluska from Watch I Love magazine, and I'm here today with Augustin Nussbaum and Jean-Christophe Sabatier from Ulysse Nardin. At first, humanity discovered the surround world with earth, fire, and ice in the blast tourbillon, and after that, it discovered the sound in the hour striker. Now, the logical evolution is to raise the eyes to the sky and discover the sun, the moon, and the correlation with the surrounding world. This is presented today the Ulysse Nardin Blast Moonstruck. Hello, Augustin. Hello, Jean-Christophe. How are you?
And Andre, great. We are great.
Nice. Can you please make a small introduction of yourself so everybody knows with whom we are talking to? Augustin?
Yes. So I am Augustin Nussbaum. I'm in charge of product development and design of the Ulysse Nardin watches.
I am Jean-Christophe Sabatier. I'm in charge of the product offer at Ulysse Nardin. I'm working for Ulysse Nardin since 5 years.
Nice to meet you both, and great to have you today. Thank you. The first astronomical watch that I had in my hands was the Ulysse Nardin Telludium Johannes Kepler, and I was absolutely mesmerized at the idea of the Earth being in the center of the disk and having two wires that rotated and showed where's the light and where's the night seen from the northern hemisphere. I was completely blown my mind, and this was the first piece of the trilogy, the last actually, but the first piece of the trilogy that I discovered. And since that moment, I, let's say, felt in love with the genius of Ludwig Oechslin. Today we have the last piece created by the master, and it's the Ulysse Nardin Moonstruck, Blast Moonstruck, the latest piece in the Blast collection that continues the vertical odyssey started last year. I see it, the watch as a first view, I see it as a very profane explication of the world around us. It is a watch that represents a lot of things on its dial, but in the same time, it keeps everything on a simplicity hard to meet in the horological world. And this comes again in question the genius of Master Oechslin. I see that looking at the Blast case, it looks to be a little bit enlarged from to accommodate all the complications that are inside of it. What led to the change of the astronomical from coming from the classic collection and introducing it into the Blast?
Well, the principle on which we have based all the development on this Blast Moonstruck is really to encapsulate all this fantastic heritage that we have from the legacy of Mr. Ludwig Oechslin. As you know, and as you mentioned, I have been really touched by your introduction. That the master has developed for Ulysse Nardin, elected by Mr. Rolf Schneider, 3 types of mythical pieces the Freak, the first timepiece with the silicium technology in 2001, the perpetual calendar complications and all the complications that are indirectly coming from this important development, and the astronomical pieces, particularly the trilogy during the 90s. And before answering your question related to the watch itself, the size of the case, and the way we have reinterpreted the high complication that has been developed by Mr. Oechslin, what I suggest is that we look at a small movie, maybe just to introduce by the master itself what was behind his mind when he has invented the Moonstruck. And then, if you agree, we could maybe review a little bit all the features of the watch.
Perfectly.
Because, and of course, I will let you discover the movie. Mr. Oechslin is somebody who is passionate, and you feel that passion. And this watch is not only, let's say, horlogerie watch. It is coming from somebody who is developing with a genius brain, but also a big heart.
Exactly.
Hör mal, siehst du hier die Sonne? Hä, siehst du? Die war doch vorher auch etwas da drüben. Und dann wird sie jetzt auch wieder da drüben hin, weil sie treten 24 Stunden, ja? Was man sieht am Himmel, der Sonnenlauf, das ist etwas, was man mit den Sinnen erfahren kann. Wie man das verstehen kann, das hat mich fasziniert. Also ich heiße Ludwig Oechslin und bin Uhrmacher vor dem Herrn. Ulysse Nardin ist zu mir gekommen sozusagen. Anfangs der 80er Jahre Rolf Schnieder begeistert hat, eine Sekundenpendeluhr mit Astrolabe-Zifferblatt mit Mond, Sonne, Sterne und Drachenzeiger. Mit der Moonstruck wollte ich etwas Einfacheres auf die Beine stellen, nämlich etwas, was jeder sehen kann am Himmel, nämlich die korrekte Anzeige des Mondes und die richtige Lichtführung. Es war für mich eine Herausforderung, mathematische Lösungen anderer Form zu finden, und das hat mich natürlich fasziniert. Deswegen habe ich eine komplett neue Mondphase dann auch entwickelt, diese Anzeige exakt ermöglicht. Die neue Moonstruck hat viele lesbare Anzeigen drauf, oder die einem einladen, näher hinzugucken und sich damit etwas mehr zu beschäftigen. Heute weiß ich, wie das funktioniert und kann es selber herstellen, und es ist immer noch absolute Bombe. Ein schöner Mechanismus ist einfach ein schöner Mechanismus und bleibt es und bleibt faszinierend, ob er jetzt verstanden wird oder nicht.
So I think
an absolute bomb.
Yes, exactly. You can feel the passion and also the deep history. In fact, this timepiece. Ludwig is a scientist. In fact, at the beginning, I mean, his background is a scientist background, and he has become a high-end watchmaker by passion. And he has a vision of what he is doing. He has a belief. The belief is, and it's expressed through a real motto: simplicity is complexity. It's really his way, and we are here speaking about something that is very deep. It's, I mean, it's religion, and I mean, so all what he's developing. And all what he has done for Ulysse Nardin, I mean, the Freak, the perpetual calendar, the astronomical pieces are based on this vision. And the principle of the Moonstruck, in fact, so I met him several times. He told me, you know, when I done the trilogy, it was very complex, very difficult to understand, very esoteric even for many collectors. And I tried to do a simplified version of the tellurium, something that could be understood maybe by more people. And also, he wanted to display some poetry. So the idea is really to bring not only some astronomical information, but also to bring some poetry into the piece. So he has developed this vision, which is a geocentric vision from the north on the top of the Earth. And you see the moon and the sun turning around the Earth. And I mean, the concept probably in his brain was about astronomical and three-dimensional vision, and of course all the informations related to the influence of the moon and the sun on the tides, for example, and of course with the related time zones. So this was at the base of the concept. And what we have tried here is to revisit this concept, particularly by combining the complication itself with a very modern design, the blast design. And this is really related to the, let's say, the vision we have today with the product strategy at Ulysse Nardin. We want to preserve the know-hows. We want to preserve what makes Ulysse Nardin a pioneering brand in terms of design, in terms of complications. But we want to modernize also the display of the know-hows. This is why you have skeletonized calibers inside the blast collection. This is why shimmering complications inside the blast collection, and now an astronomical complication. So to answer your question, we are related to the choice of the case and the size. What we have chosen to do here is to rework entirely the way the information is displayed with all those concentric diodes that are turning. And we wanted also to wide open the vision, the three-dimensional vision, by let's say removing the bezel at its maximum. The size of the watch is 45 millimeters, so it is even smaller, in fact, than the previous version, which was on a more classic execution, but yet on 46 millimeter size.
So you brought the traditional horological story started 40 years ago. You brought it in the, let's say, in the contemporary, in the modern day.
Exactly. It's clearly the purpose of this. I don't even use the word product launch, because in fact it's not a real launch. We have always had, since the date the Moonstruck has been presented to the market in 2009. We've always had a Moonstruck in our collection. So it's a kind of revisitation, in fact, of this product. And it is, of course, a high-end piece, and the price positioning is 75,000 euros. But we sold in our history more than 500 pieces of this mythical piece at Ulysse Nardin worldwide. So it is really, it is the third generation for this product. We have introduced the world timer at the second generation. This is the third. And I'm sure that in 50 years, you will still have a Moonstruck in our collection.
Let's hope also in 100. If we are going back to the watch itself, every time when I see the pictures of the Moonstruck, I feel like a normal people looking around me and seeing the sun and the moon, and then be able to have them on my wrist exactly how they are in the sky. So the idea of having the astrological, such a huge sky on the wrist from the perspective of the simple human is absolutely amazing. And what I can see that the watch is made from the perspective of the northern hemisphere.
Correct.
And the time that is display as, because the watch has also a dual time function. The watch, the perspective that is displayed with the moon and the sun, it's the, let's say, the home time. And changing the dual time keeps the perspective of the home time with the moon and the sun, and then it's changed at the time for the second, let's say, second time zone. And comes the question, the time zone is represented for the home time, or how exactly is the representation of the dial? What did the dial actually displays?
Maybe we can introduce a slide, and Augustin will give you some input.
You see,
or the picture, exactly.
Yes, you see here the world timer on the last part of the dial,
Mm-hmm.
and you see the Earth in the center. So the sun disk with all the time zone shows the time of all over the world like a world timer.
Mm.
So you can see at the bottom London GMT. On this picture, it's 2 o'clock the afternoon. And the hands are set at 10:10. So basically, you are in time to Caracas or 22. I can't read, but not so far from Sydney. So when you see the world timer, you see the time for the whole Earth, and you see the position of the sun and the moon, which is for everybody the same at the same time.
Mm.
The time of the hand is your time. If you choose to have the hand from London or from Dubai, it's your choice, and you set that with the dual time function.
It's a very interesting concept, and it's amazing how much information can be shown just by adding two simple subdials with the moon and the sun. How much information you can you receive only by this very smart complication. So you have the world timer, but in the same time you can see the position of the sun and the moon for the entire northern hemisphere according to all the location actually. So it's absolutely amazing. It's enriching the idea of dual time and time zones in a way much more easier to comprehend, because you know, okay, it's 10 o'clock in the evening, it's already dark, people are sleeping. So it's much easier to understand exactly the idea of the time zone with this perspective. The very interesting construction of the crystal box, because you don't have just a cover, you have a crystal box, and you have the complication of the date is actually on the crystal, on the top sapphire, which is absolutely mind-blowing. It's not something that you think about it, to have it so in phase, let's say. And the date is a complication that is widely used, because everybody in the moments of date, they're thinking it, for a moment they forgot what date it is. You just look at the watch and you see it exactly the date. Now you have this perspective in front of it, so it's a very very highlighted design. But I have a question related to how is this built, because you have a crystal box and you have the gold ring, and you have also another dome. How is this constructed?
We have two separate glasses. As we have to have the ring for the date fixed on top of the hand, we have to fix it somewhere under the glass. For this version, we choose to mix two glasses, the big glass, which is a box sapphire glass, with a small glass on which we will represent the Earth from the North Pole. So these two glasses are linked with the date ring in the center. The domed glass with the Earth is engraved with the continent and the meridian. And this is fixed on the ring with the date. And this ring is also fixed on the second box glass, which is the main glass of the watch.
It is glued, or what is the technical process used for this?
So the small dome is glued to the ring, and the ring is mounted with a gasket on the main glass, because we have to make it align with the world timer. So we have to be able to adjust with the gasket.
Makes perfectly sense. I see that the dial is very rich in elements. We can see aventurine as a night sky. We can see the very interesting moon construction. There is bronzite for the sun. There is a connotation or a link for the choice of these materials, or a special reason behind it?
Yes, of course. Aventurine was naturally chosen because it represents the sky with the stars. So it's very often used like that on a lot of watches. It came quite quickly. But for the sun, we had to find a stone which represents better as the sun. And when I discovered the bronzite, which I didn't know before, I saw exactly what you see when you see the surface of the sun. So we chose this stone because of this. It represents exactly the sun when we see it with a telescope.
I see that the moon complication is not just the moon phases. It's rotating completely with the tile, and represents also the tides that are the tidal waves that are naturally formed by the moon. How this can be easily read on the dial, because it's a little bit more complex than just having the.
So, as we have two discs, the moon disk and the sun disk, you know that the tides are in fact the influence of the moon on the water, and less, but also the influence of the sun. So the ellipse represents the water, on dit attiré par la lune, attracted by the moon.
Influence, yes.
And also the same for the sun. When these two ellipses are aligned, it means either you are in a full moon or new moon. It's when the attraction of the sun and the moon are combined. So it represents a period when you have high tide. When, as it's shown on the picture, you are almost at 120 degrees, you are close to low tide. Low tide will be the combination of the sun and the moon at 90 degrees. So it's a way to represent the tide factor between high tide and low tide.
It's a very interesting complication, and although it's not very used by normal explorators, because they have a lot of modern equipment,
Yes.
it's absolutely amazing to see it. Because as we know, also the people are influenced about the moon and the sun, and the influence that you have on the tides and on the sea and the ocean is actually an influence that you have also on people. So maybe for us, it's an easier way to understand the human the human
Yes.
nature.
It's a very good point, Dan Andre. And by the way, it's why this name has been chosen, Moonstruck,
Moonstruck.
because it refers to the feeling that you have. It can be a dreamy feeling or a freaky feeling when the moon is on full moon, or for example, and so it refers to this influence, in fact, of the spirit of the people. And this name has been chosen by Mr. Rolf Schneider and Ludwig at that time for that reason.
Oh, excellent. um, Coming back to the moon phase, because it's an extraordinary. It's not just like sun that moves around the earth and you can see it. On the moon phase, you have the age of the moon on the moon. And how is this exactly constructed? You have, because you are rotating 24 hours with the moon, but inside you have an aperture where you show the age of the moon. How is this built? You have another disk behind that completely rotates with the moon, or how is this built?
Yes, under the moon disk, you have another disk with the representation of the moon. You see the little crater, and it moves just a bit slower than the moon disk. And when the moon disk made half a turn compared to the sun disk, the moon goes from black to white, so from new moon to full moon. As you see the disk which is behind. In fact, on the moon, the moon is a hole.
And the moon, as everybody's when is talking about the moon phase and moon age, is talking about the precision of the moon phase. Can you tell us more about the mathematical number behind this poetic complication?
So that's Ludwig Oechslin, the genius, who could tell you exactly the calculation he made with the gears. But this moon has a precision of 1 day every 40 years. If you compare to a traditional moon with a disk of 49 teeth, you have 1 moon day every 2.5 years. So this one is really more precise. Every 40 years, you have only 1 moon day of set.
Which is very impressive. Because this is a very complicated watch, but it also is an automatic watch. The Moonstruck is supplied with a case winder to keep all the complication in the right spots. But let's say we forget the watch aside and we don't put it on the case. What happens then? Do you need to go to the watchmaker, as sometimes it happens with this very high astronomical complication, or we just can take the watch and set it?
Okay. Well, as Ludwig said, I mean, you can use that watch for the poetry it contains, and also you can also consider that you need it to be precise. And as we said, it is more precise than most of the moon phase that you can find on the market. And it is also not only about poetry or precision, it is also, and you mentioned it, about practicality in handling particularly the world timer, because the world timer is really practical. So when you set the piece, it's I mean, it is done, and it is quite easy then to adjust the time, the date, and the world timer without changing the astronomic settings that are already setted. So the answer is yes, you can do it by yourself. And so I'm going to ask maybe Augustin to do a small demo. Of course, if you want to set it, the most simple is to start by taking a small app where you will find when is the next full or new moon, and you are going to start from this indication in order to make it shorter in terms of timing for the setting. So you are going to find externally, if I may say, this information, and you are going to take this information at the GMT point of reference. You will, of course, take into account later on where you are based geographically. So the first information that you must take is when is the closest full or new moon, and at what, how, and you are going to set it at the GMT time. Augustin, if you want to pursue.
So the next new moon, which is close, let's say we have the watch stopped at this position. The next full moon will be the 1st of February. The first thing you have to do is to set the hand at the time of the GMT. So here I see GMT is 12. Am I right? No, 14. So I check to be to 14 with the real time. So okay, the date passed, so it's midnight. So I go to 14. And then I go to the new moon position. Fortunately, I'm close to the new moon position, so I return to reach the new moon position, which means the sun and the moon are aligned. I'm too far.
And
fortunately, you can do it forward and backward because it's Ludwig Oechslin.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. You took my words from my mouth. You can go forward and backwards, and you don't have to worry that you'll break something or you'll mix up something. Everything will be just fine.
So I'm in the position of the next new moon. So I set the date to the 1st February here. And then I just have to come back to our present time. So I come back to here, we are the 28th.
(28:11), just right before 11 a.m.
So in principle, you need something like 2, maybe 3 minutes.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
5 until you discover the right app on the internet to look. But otherwise is just as simple as that.
Yes.
You have a crowd, two pushers. You have the classical dual time functionality that you meet at
Can you show the dual time?
many
So,
of these watches.
we are in London, in fact, at London it's 10, so I set now the time right for everything, moon, sun, and dates, and I choose my time zone to 11, which is Paris.
Wow, marvelous.
So once the piece is setted with the astronomical informations, what is also really, as I said, in my opinion, very practical if you have an active life, is that you can go with the 2 pushers, forward, backward. I mean, you land with your plane, you set the time very easily. And so this watch is not only about high-end complication and the exclusive complication. It is also practical. It's light. It is a titanium case combined with some ceramic. It is stable to wear, ergonomic. So it is also a way to reinterpret also the watchmaking proposition. In the past, the Moonstruck was presented in heavier materials, platinum, rose gold. The size was a little bit wider. The watch was a little bit thicker. So this generation of Moonstruck is also more in line with what we are doing today, with some products that are more versatile also and playful.
So that means we can see that for today in this actual very fast times, we have an apogee combination of complication and style of work created by Master Oechslin, because we have the poetical astronomical complications that, besides the beauty, it offers information, hidden information about us and also about the world around us. It's the dual time and the GMT with the fantastic, easy to use crown and dual pushers that you can just go back and forward. It's an absolutely amazing piece for these modern times.
Correct, I agree. It's really the quintessence, in fact, of the tradition and the modernity. And I believe that it is something that is, necessary for modern active life. So the piece is full, in fact, of facets, and it's what I like, in fact.
It's an absolutely amazing piece. Thank you very much both for your time and for the presentation of the piece. I am looking forward to see it live in the first moment, and of course what Watches and Wonders will bring in the next almost 2 months. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Andre. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.